Welcome into another edition of NBA Soundsystem Canada. My name is Gil McGregor, joined as always by my guy, Kyle Irving, back after a brief 1 week hiatus. But it's kind of that time of the year where there's a lot going on, but not a lot going on at the same time. That being said, Kai, what's up? How you feeling? How you doing, man?
Feeling good. Like we said before, like at this time of the off season, it almost feels like you have to let things build up for a couple weeks. So that way you have enough to talk about, because especially with the way that this year's off season went, where, all the movement felt like it happened right away. And then we've still just been sitting on the same news that we're waiting on for weeks now. We still don't know what's going on with Jonathan Kuminga. We still don't know what's going on with Josh Giddey. We still don't know what's going on with Cam Thomas or Quentin Grimes. We know what's going to happen with Al Horford, but that's on hold until the Jonathan Kuminga stuff. So it's like, the updates are all the same, but, at least this time around, we let a couple weeks build up and we have the schedule release to talk about. We have 2K to talk about. We have, EuroBasket and AmeriCup to talk about. So I'm excited to dive into it all.
Yeah, no, it's funny you said that. It's Tuesday, August 19th. So obviously WNBA season is kind of winding around down the stretch, and we'll talk about a lot of the stuff going on there as well. But you mentioned international competitions are starting up. AmeriCup Canada has an interesting roster. We'll talk a little bit about that. NBA 2K is a little over a week away from early access happening. So we can talk about that. The ratings are coming out. I have some interesting thoughts about that as well. But we'll start with the news that came in today. Tip of the cap, salute. You and I both tweeted about the guy. John Wall announced his retirement from the game. He hadn't played in a while. I think it was 2022-23 season when he was with the Clippers. I wrote something about it earlier today, and it really just kind of reminded me about his career arc. That peak year, that 2017 year, which I know you were locked into that 7-game series between the Wizards and the Celtics, that was the peak of John Wall's powers. 23 points, 10.5 assists, 4 boards per game. And we were really starting to see what John Wall was going to be at his prime. And then injuries just started after that. 2018 was a knee. 2019 was a heel and an Achilles. And that kind of spelled the end, or the beginning of the end for him. So it's funny, somebody asked me if he was one of the bigger what ifs, but it's like we saw it. It wasn't even a what if. We knew exactly what it was. But I guess when you think back to John Wall and his career, what he meant to the Wizards, what he meant to the basketball culture, honestly, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, John Wall is, well, first off, and you said that we will tweet about it, John Wall has the best high school hoop mixtape of all time. I will not hear any other arguments. 10 million? It should have more than that, honestly. And if you haven't gone and watched the John Wall high school hoop mixtape since he retired, pay your respects to the man. It is the best high school hoop mixtape of all time. I won't even hear any other arguments. When I saw the news that he retired, like you said, he had a very solid NBA career. We got to see what peak John Wall could have looked like. And I do think that because of the way that his career kind of fizzled out at the end because of injuries, it almost makes people forget how good he was in his prime. Yeah. But I do think that he is a player who, I remember when I would get home from school, I would pull up YouTube and I'm pulling up that high school hoop mixtape. When he was at Kentucky, I remember loading up, NCAA March Madness on my Xbox 360 and running with that Kentucky team in
squad.
He just felt like squad. One of those players, obviously you have the LeBron James where, you remember him on the cover of Sports Illustrated for kids. And we got to watch his entire career kind of evolve and develop. But John Wall to me kind of felt like one of those first players where people really found out about who he was through YouTube. You didn't really know about high school basketball players like that unless you were really in the weeds looking on Rivals or ESPN Top 100, stuff like that. You and I were I feel the more casual fan, you found out about guys like John Wall through YouTube. So he was kind of that first leap of the next generation of superstars. And, he had the Rezigs, those were very unique to him. I don't know, the two-tone sleeve at Kentucky. Yeah. There's just Elite so socks. Many things. Yeah. The Nike Elite socks. There were just so many things about John Wall that I feel is iconic of that early 2010s era of basketball.
No, 100%. I think back and shout out to One Entertainment because they hoop mixtape kind of absorbed in One Entertainment out in North Carolina. He played for D1 Sports. It was him and a couple other guys that he played with had crazy mixtapes. Obviously his was at the top of the top, but all of those guys, imagining the show that they put on. I wasn't living in North Carolina at the time, but thinking back to Kentucky, that was when Nike started doing the big shorts, the tight jerseys. And we started being, you could buy Elite socks, but you couldn't get the white with the royal blue. They had white and silver, black and silver. You had the royal blue and white.
Those are exclusive. It was
like, the Kentucky white and blue with the hyperized, like, like that, like John, like I think back to that. I saw that Kentucky team play twice. They played in New Orleans in the tournament that year. Kind of crazy. I remember Drake was there at the game. And this is before Drake was Drake. This was 2009, 2010 year. And I remember like he was kind of doing his own thing, but like Ashley Judd was like the person they were treating like they were like, I guess Kentucky blue carpet was out for them, but they were the 1 seed and they won the first game by like 30 and they beat Wake Forest by a whole lot too. It was John Wall and Boogie, Patrick Patterson, all those guys, like a squad, man, like a squad. And then going straight from that into his rookie year with the Wizards, I think he averaged, 16 and 8, and he would have been rookie of the year if it wasn't for a fellow named Blake Griffin, who was a redshirt rookie, winning rookie of the year that year as well. 5 All-Stars in a row. And the last thing I was going to say about him, he sits out all that time with the heel injury and had the freak accident and also had an infection after surgery. All that stuff kind of happened. He comes back with the Rockets. I think he averaged like 20 a game after not playing basketball for a long time. So it just speaks to how talented he was, and a guy whose game was still based on athleticism still came back and put up numbers like that, and even had some good numbers that last year with the Clippers. I think it was just tough for him to kind of find a niche. I actually had a pair of the Rezigs. I didn't buy them, but I did like end up with a pair of Rezigs in my hand at some point. So I could even say that I was able to kind of tap into that as well. Might be the last pair of Reeboks I owned in life. So that being said, salute to John Wall on a big career. I fully expect number 2 to be hanging up in the rafters at Capital One Arena. I think that's what they call it in DC now.
Still Capital One. Yeah.
They change the name all the time. But it's hard to think of very many people, especially in the modern era, who mean more to the Wizards franchise than John Wall.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, especially being a Celtics fan, like that era with Isaiah Thomas, like it was him versus Brad Beal and John Wall. It felt like every single year. And like you said, that epic 7-game series where Kelly Olynyk goes crazy in game 7, like John Wall and Bradley Beal, like those two, like, I mean, they were a problem together. Like, again, I almost feel like people forget how good those two were together. And Bradley Beal, I think, took to Twitter today, or maybe it was on Instagram, where he was like,
both, yeah.
I'd be nothing without John Wall. And like the way that those two fit and mesh together, because John Wall was so, like, I don't even know how to explain it. I was trying to think of almost like a more like present day player comparison for people who weren't really like as tapped into the NBA. I say, like, back then, as if 2010 was like that long ago.
But flying, though.
He was like De'Aaron Fox if De'Aaron Fox was just like bigger, stronger, maybe even faster with the ball in his hands. Like just the downhill, the behind the back, like, he's going full speed to get around defenders, spin moves, like passes behind his head. Like that's the other part too, where like a lot of people remember John Wall for his breakaway speed, things that he could do in the open court, but like his playmaking was out of this world. To average 10 assists per game in the NBA is crazy, man. Like you have to be next level court vision, next level, like at Kentucky, like I guess we were younger, so I wasn't necessarily like watching the X's and O's of basketball like that until it kind of got to that age. But like that was also like the first time that I really remember like a team playing, like you're spacing the floor. You are like maximizing that you have this point guard that can just get downhill, get to the rim at will whenever he wants. And like, I don't really remember teams playing 4 out like that, like, prior to that. I'm sure it was happening, but like that almost felt like, ushering in a new, like almost like the next era of what basketball ended up becoming too, where it's not clunky with 2 bigs on the block. Boogie could shoot, Patrick Patterson could shoot. And they kind of, just kind of cleared out and made space for John Wall to get downhill and get to the rim and do what he does. But, I can't talk enough about John Wall. He was one of my favorite players growing up. I had the Washington Wizards jersey. I bought a pair of the Hyperizes because of him. They were like the worst basketball shoes I have ever worn in my entire life. I remember I want to say like colleges even told their players to stop getting wearing them.
Yeah, like the ankle,
because there were so many ankle injuries. Right, yeah, because they were like the most like almost like flimsy piece of like plastic or whatever the material was at the time. Like that was when they were trying to make all the shoes like as light as possible, as fast as possible. And it's like, all right, well, maybe we like need a little bit more structure than that. But yeah, man, shout out to John Wall. I'm glad that we were able to give him a little bit of a tribute here, the tribute that he deserves because of everything that he did for basketball, especially in the era of you and I growing up and kind of watching his game change with the game of basketball.
Absolutely. Flowers. One last thing I'm going to say, nobody better offhand dunks than John Wall. Always dunking it with the left.
That was what was so special about the mixtape too.
all the offhand, left-hand dunks, like with power too. And the crazy thing I saw today, Kentucky shouted him out. Don't think about it. When you think about Cat, you think about AD, KD, first ever number 1 overall pick out of Kentucky, John Wall. He was the one that paved the way. All those guys after that, John Wall was the first and represented that era of John Calipari basketball out of Kentucky. Now, I got it in front of me so we can just shift it straight to that schedule release. We needed a chance to really talk about it. We kind of knew or had an idea of what we might see throughout the year. So I'll just go through some of the highlights. Opening night, Rockets at OKC. Banner night, KD gets to watch the banner go up in the building he used to play in, and he ain't got nothing to do with that banner. He goes on Twitter and says it's about time. Yeah. Warriors, Lakers also happens on opening night. We got KD's return to Phoenix on November 24th. Miles Turner returns to Indiana on November 3rd. That was out of order, but still, we got that as well. Finals rematch is pretty early in the year. Thunder are in Indiana, early game. So we got a lot of different scheduling quirks throughout the season. I'm trying to get down to the Christmas schedule. I don't know if you have it in front of you right now.
I do have it in front of me.
But yeah, you got the Christmas. You go around the Christmas schedule. I'll pass it to you right now because I don't have it right there.
Yeah, Christmas schedule. We got Cavs at Knicks to kick off the day. Best team in the East at Madison Square Garden. Hard to argue that. Spurs at Thunder. Wemby had a monster Christmas Day game last year where I feel like it almost went overlooked. He had 40 points on Christmas, which is crazy.
That is kind of wild.
I think it ended up. I think it was even more than that. Yeah, at the Garden too in his first ever Christmas Day game. Rockets at Lakers is kind of the main one in the afternoon. Mavs at Warriors. I think people were pretty surprised that we didn't get Mavs at Lakers, but I think that there's part of that also.
Let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah, too premeditated if they, were kind of in your face with that on Christmas Day. And then to close out the night, Wolves at Nuggets, solid matchup, a rematch from last year's playoffs. So, I had no real beef with the Christmas Day schedule. I had no real beef with the opening night schedule. Like Warriors at Lakers, I know that's something that kind of feels played out, but at the same time, it's like, hey man, we're not going to get many more Steph versus LeBron matchups. And anytime you're going to put them in the limelight, in the spotlight like that, I'm not going to complain about it. I don't know how you felt about opening night schedule, Christmas Day schedule, or, anything else.
I'm going to point something out. We just named 7 games. 2 Eastern Conference teams involved in all of them, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's all we get is 2 Eastern Conference teams throughout that. And I know
that is true, actually. Damn.
The balance of power. I know it's the first time the Celtics aren't involved in Christmas in a while, and we know it's going to be a little bit of a gap year for that team. So that's the first thing that kind of stands out to me. And by the way, you're talking Victor Wembanyama on Christmas, 42, 18, 4 assists, 4 blocks in his Christmas Day debut in the Garden. Not too shabby.
Mikal Bridges went crazy and they lost that game.
Yeah, which is wild. But it's exciting. I love the storylines. Seeing KD play in OKC, his first ever Rockets game will be fun to see that. The Christmas Day schedule, I know somebody said their one beef was that maybe the game should have been played in Minnesota instead of Denver. That's just kind of, nitpicking at that point. But yeah, I'm going to be seated, of course. Obviously, I'll be locked in and tuned into all of those games, throughout the day, as I am all year. And I'm really excited to see how that is, how the presentation is going to be, because this year we're going to get the NBC Peacock broadcast on opening night. So it starts off early with that. We've got the Black Friday games. I think Lakers Mavericks is Black Friday, actually.
Yeah, I think that is the first matchup, right?
Yeah, and it's an NBA Cup game as well, and that's Amazon Prime. Yeah. So getting used to that a little bit is something that we'll talk about, and we'll kind of see how that looks. I'm excited. I know they've outlined the fact that there's going to be a way to watch a game or a nationally televised game or a national presentation every night of the week, which is fun as an NBA fan. Now, the prices you have to pay to see it, not as fun, with the subscription games. But I do think it also is cool because it allows more teams to get nationally televised games. So I'm not going to be mad about it. The intensity is a little bit higher and people complain about intensity of regular season games. I think that more national TV games and more national presentations will only up the intensity a little bit earlier in the year.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I do want to segue into teams that have the most and fewest nationally televised games, because I did think there was kind of some interesting points on that. One that stuck out to me right away. So least nationally televised games this season, the Bulls and Hornets have 3, and then the Jazz, Nets, Pelicans, Raptors, Wizards, all tied with 2. What's the team that sticks out to you there?
Say one more time.
The Jazz, Nets, Pelicans, Raptors, Wizards.
Something a lot of that's weird. The Pelicans not having that many is crazy.
That's what I'm saying. That was the team that stuck out to me. Wild. I'm we're over Zion Williamson like that.
It's crazy. It's wild. I saw some people pointing out, we're not going to get into that part of it, but Saints have 0. So it's this organization in the city have a combined 2 national television games, basketball and football, which is wild. But yeah, man, if Zion's healthy, entertaining, right? They got Jordan Poole in, Trey Murphy is somebody who people can talk more about, if he's playing. I think if people see him play more, but it feels like people are just like counting on him not being available. And I guess it's kind of one of those things where they can flex him in there if he earns it and if they make their way out. But, you say that like it is wild to think, because I was going to say, oh yeah, well, it has been 7 years, but at the same time, it was just the 2023-24 season when he led the Pelicans to Vegas. And then he had 40 in the play-in tournament before he got hurt. So he's box office when he's ready to go. It's just a matter of if he's going to be ready to go or not. And that is, I guess, a big if right there, right?
I'm sure that the NBA, like whoever's making the schedules, and I know a lot of it is like, it's an algorithm. They probably just plug teams in and they have certain matchups they want on certain days and things like that. But like, I'm sure whoever's making those schedules, just like over the past couple of years, they just feel like snake bit. Like they're like, because I want to say it was, I don't know how many years ago, but there was like a time where the Pelicans were like towards the upper end of the league in nationally televised games. And I'm sure it just got to the point that Zion was not available for those nationally televised games. And like, they're trying to market those games and they're like, well, we just got screwed.
How are we selling it?
So, it was still a little bit surprising to me to see that like a player of his caliber that like everybody was so excited about. It's like, all right, well, we don't want to play with you anymore. Like we have Victor Wembanyama now. Like we have, you know what I mean? Like there's other players to be excited about, but that one definitely stuck out to me. And then most nationally televised games, Lakers, Thunder, Warriors, Knicks, all tied at 34, most in the league. Wolves, Rockets, 28 after that. Anybody missing? Anything that caught you off guard there? I don't know. I mean, it's pretty status quo, right?
Yeah, I got the list in front of me too. And the one that stands out to me is the Nuggets around the outside. And I think the Nuggets are going to be damn good this year. And 26 is a whole lot of national televised games.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong, but it just feels like kind of the point, right? Like I know that Jokic isn't necessarily the flashiest for a more casual fan, compared to look at the teams above. The Knicks are a massive market. Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant are just really, the way they do things are exciting. Curry is Curry, Luka's Luka. The Thunder are the champs. But it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, man, you would maybe think the Nuggets could get 30 plus just because they have a generational talent. And again, games get flexed, things like that. I will say, are you surprised or not that the Celtics, despite, we mentioned it already, kind of having a little bit of a gap year, still get 25? Do you think that'll be a enjoyable product for the masses this year? I don't know. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I do have a comment on that in general. And my comment, and I was giving my coworker some shit about this, but like, here's the whole thing is that like nobody likes Jason Tatum and he's not very good and nobody wants to watch him play. But now he's not healthy and the Celtics aren't featured in any opening night. They're not featured on Christmas Day. They're only projected to win 44 and a half games. So something isn't necessarily lining up here. Something, 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4 there. That's kind of my comment on that. Listen, I think that it's going to be a weird year for the C's. Like they're going to have probably 30 different starting lineups and we're going to learn a lot about Jaylen Brown. And I'm sure there's going to be some games that's really pretty and you're like, hey, this is the number one guy that can lead a team. And there are going to be some games where it's like, that's why he's number 2. You know what I mean? So, I think that the NBA is probably trying to also bake in the fact that like, if things don't go to plan at the beginning of the season, like maybe the Celtics do kind of just punt this year and have guys start sitting out, whatever it is for next season or whatever. So the same way that we're saying that you can't prepare for Zion Williamson to be ready and available for national TV games, like maybe they, decided to pump the brakes on the season a little bit. I was still pretty surprised that they had as many as they did. I think that's just the franchise and the history behind it. And, they're going to draw an audience no matter what. But I would say like where they ended up with the number of nationally televised games is about right for the product that's going to be on the court next year.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And I got to talk about this real quick. It's not a holiday, but it's our favorite week to talk about, Rivals Week. they announced that schedule too. Yep. You got Rockets, Spurs, Lakers, Nuggets, Hornets, Cavs.
Yeah, I was just going to say the
Thunder,
Hornets,
Bucks.
Cavs.
Like Rockets, Pistons stands out a little bit. Obviously, Pacers, Thunder's a finals rematch. Then you wrap the week up with Knicks, Sixers, Warriors, Wolves, and then Lakers, Mavs. It kind of feels like it's NBA petty week because it's like, oh yeah, you got Jimmy Butler in Minnesota. You know what I mean? You got the Thompson twins now, but somebody asked me about, I was like, well, there's Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green rival that used to be. Well, now it can't be because he's not in Houston anymore. Victor Wembanyama's got a little petty back and forth with the Rockets as well. There's like him cheering when they didn't get the number 1 pick and him not wanting to go to Houston. So there's also that. But the thing that I talked about, and the Hornets and Cavs have another national televised game earlier in the year. But I thought about this because you keep saying you're banking on health. And it's like they want to get this Ball brothers matchup on TV so bad. And every time either one, the other, or neither are available. And it's like, man, if you want to schedule that game, January 21st is not the bet to make.
Do it.
That is not the bet to make, man. Like, that's way too far into the season. I also think it's funny that they factored in the Thunder's NBA Cup championship rematch and finals rematch in there with them playing the Bucks earlier in the week as well. So, I'm going to push that as well. So I just want to give a shout out to Rivals Week. I'm sure we'll talk more about it when Rivals Week comes up. Before we wrap or go to a break, the other thing we want to talk about was a presentation change with Prime and Peacock and games at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. I mean, that's even late for you. Game starting at 8 o'clock. I know you're a night owl, so you're going to be up. But dang, man, like 8 o'clock tip on the West Coast? What are we doing?
There was like coast to bed, or like there was like some sort of like corny joke about it because they're calling it like NBA coast to coast, and like the first game tips off at whatever it is 7:30, and the next one tips off at 11, and it's just like you're gonna lose a lot of viewers on the East Coast with an 11 p.m. tip. I mean, even someone like you that is willing to stay up as late as possible to make sure that you're consuming as much NBA action as possible. I have a feeling there's going to be some times this year where I shoot you a text during 11 p.m. Eastern tip, and I don't hear back from you till the next morning. I feel like it's just that's a lot. That's asking a lot. But to go back to the national TV schedule in general, like that was something that kind of caused a big stir on social media, and I have it up in front of me. Like Sundays are ABC, NBC, or Peacock. Mondays, Peacock. Tuesdays, NBC and Peacock. Wednesday, ESPN. Thursday, Amazon Prime. Friday, Amazon Prime and ESPN. Saturday, Amazon Prime and ABC. It's like there's going to be a whole lot of where the hell are we watching these games? What time are they starting
Check
at?
the guide.
But yeah. Pull up the old school TV guide. Find out and you know what? If crack streams and Met streams are still functioning at that point in the season, like those websites are about to do numbers this year because I don't think everybody's paying for all the subscriptions necessary to watch all these games. But I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that, or in addition to the 11 p.m. tip. It's a new era.
There's two ways. It is. There's two ways to look at it, right? Where it's like, oh man, like I think I said it a little bit. It's like, oh, there's a game on nationally televised every day, but it's like, man, which day is which? And like, how am I figuring out? Like, it was pretty easy in the past. We knew Thursday was TNT. Tuesday and Thursday was TNT. We knew Wednesday and Friday was ESPN, and Sundays, sometimes ESPN after that. But now we got Sunday night basketball is going to replace Sunday night football after the Super Bowl, and all this other stuff is happening. And you got your Peacock exclusives and your Amazon Prime, and the Cup is going to be exclusively here and there. And all these people like on different networks that I have no idea who's going to be where yet. Like I know Melo's doing it, and I know T-Mac and all these, but I don't know who is where yet. So it's kind of like, you know what? Inside the NBA might be on opening night and then not again till Christmas. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna turn my TV on and check my listings, check the NBA app, something, and then just follow along and go there. Hopefully, League Pass still works for me the way it's been working in the past, and we'll go from there.
It cracks me up because like you just said, where that throughout the whatever it's been, however many month off season, like there has been so many reports about, it feels like every single NBA player that suited up on the court in uniform from like 2010 to 2016 is an analyst on one of these networks somewhere, but I don't know who's working with who. Are they in the studio? Are they on the sidelines? Are they in a talk show? Are they like, what are we doing here? Like it's going to take some getting used to. That's all it is. And exactly. Like, it's just something for people to complain about. Well, there's nothing else going on right now. Like at the end of the day, like we'll eventually get used to whatever this is that I'm looking at. Sundays are NBC, Mondays are Peacock, Tuesdays are NBC, ESPN's still on Monday and Friday. Prime is rounding out the weekend. Like, I don't know. It's going to take some getting used to. I know that I can already envision the text from my dad just getting pissed off because he doesn't know where the hell to watch these games, and he's gonna be like, how can I figure this out? Like, how can I watch these? Like, this is bullshit that I can't flip from Amazon Prime straight to ESPN seamlessly. Like, it's just, I guess that's just where we're at. But yeah, I just hope that it doesn't end up like deterring people from watching the games and then just kind of complaining about that all season long because it's not convenient to watch these games, and whatever, maybe viewership goes down, whatever it is. Like, I just hope that's not the end outcome.
Yeah, legit viewership might go down, but people still watch the league, and we talk about that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
People talk about the game being boring. People are watching the game. They're just not maybe going by the most legal means to do it. We're not condoning that. I'm just saying that's probably why the numbers look the way they look. People are still watching the game. So anyway, going to throw it to a quick break, and we'll just keep talking through some of the current events and things that are going on around the league and take it home. All right, so we teased it at the top of the show. FIBA AmeriCup down in Nicaragua begins this weekend. So by the time you hear this, everybody is going to be gearing up. I don't have the final 12 in front of me, but I do have Canada's training camp roster. Not sure if they made the final cuts yet or not. The tournament's starting, so they probably have. But I'm going to read off this roster. Charles Bediako, Trey Bell-Haynes, Jaden Campbell, Marcus Carr, Nate Darling, Keyshawn George, Quincy Guerrier, Javon Henry Blair, Fiondu Kabengele, Thomas Kennedy, Leonard Miller, Isaiah Mike, David Minkat, and Kyle Wiltjer. I, for one, we talked about Keyshawn George a little bit. We know he's Swiss-Canadian. I think it's cool to see him tapping into his father's Canadian roots. His dad played professionally. He's from Montreal. And then seeing another pro, Leonard Miller, another NBA player, and Leonard Miller. Both these guys kind of can get big reps and be the guys for this team. And they won bronze back in 2022. And I think this is a team that is probably just as talented as anybody else down there and has a good shot to have another podium finish and be kind of a developmental squad for the team. You know, we know the heavy hitters and the other guys who are on the come up, but kind of develop some of these guys and younger guys. And this is how you sustain a big program nationally.
Yeah, I think the thing that kind of throws me off a little bit, and I don't really understand what it is, maybe it's like just a little bit more country pride, like for teams in EuroBasket and things like that. But like, I don't know, like it is kind of odd to me how, like, you know, you have Luka, Giannis, and Jokic playing in EuroBasket. But like, I mean, the USA roster is like, if you go through it, it's like an old college basketball head's dream to like run through some of those names that you see. And it's like, oh my God, I forgot that guy exists. Like same with Canada. Like I'm not knocking the roster. Like you said, like, you know, having Keyshawn George there, having Leonard Miller there, like those are two NBA guys, like you said, that get to have a bigger role. But like, it does surprise me a little bit. And I don't know what the disconnect is where you don't see as much NBA talent turn up for these types of events. Like I know like the Bahamas, for example, is like a growing program that has a bunch of guys that are you know, representing that country. Norman Powell is someone who like I was like, oh wow, he's going to be, you know, I don't know if he's playing in AmeriCup, but like plans on like representing the Bahamas at some point. Or Jamaican. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so it's like, I don't know. It's interesting to me how you see the EuroBasket rosters are so loaded with like top end talent, and it's always the same teams that come back and play every year. Like even like you think about like those German teams that like have been running the table for a while now, like the guys that aren't even NBA players are still, they become like household names because you're so used to seeing the same guys show up. So it's a little odd to me that doesn't translate to a tournament like AmeriCup or like maybe even like AfroBasket. I'm not sure if it's the same way.
Yeah, I mean, you say that. I went to take a look at the USA team, and Raptors legend Jamias Ramsey is suiting up for Team USA down there. I will say it's funny too, like Langston Galloway. Shout out to Langston Galloway. He's become like the OG of Team USA, always there. He was with the team out in Paris last year. Obviously, yes, he didn't play, but he was there the entire time. He was on the national team, like training camp stuff. And then shout out to Ty Tyler Cavanaugh. Started at Wake Forest, finished up at George Washington, but ended up playing in the league for a little bit as well. So again, like you said, who's who of just guys who played collegiately and kind of made a name for themselves at the collegiate level. Zach August, another guy, big interesting one actually, and I say this like earnestly. Zach August was in between playing for the Greek national team and United States, and somehow he ends up playing for the United States national team. So interesting to look, and I don't have the other countries' rosters in front of me. Obviously, you know, Argentina is always going to be a force to be reckoned with in these tournaments. Brazil always usually has a guy or two as well. So I don't know. You know, I think, you know, you talk about what basketball means, and obviously basketball is a big deal in North America. It was invented by a Canadian after all. But I do think that like there's just a different level of importance, and like I think as Americans specifically, we're so trained to put the Olympics over everything, right? Like our best squad doesn't even go to the World Cup a lot of times. Right. So, and honestly, you know, having a conversation with our guy, friend of the program, Carlin Gay, you know, I'll be very interested. We're still, you know, a couple years away, but to see what type of squad Canada sends to the World Cup when it comes around again. Like I think Shea's kind of paid his dues at that level, quite honestly, right? Where like I wouldn't expect him to see, but that would be like, hey, look, Shaedon Sharpe, hey, look, Benedict Mathurin, you guys, if you want to come out here in LA in 2028, let's kind of figure it out here. And maybe that's when you send Andrew Nembhard out there to kind of be the guy, which kind of sounds funny, but like he could be the guy because he's been there before. And then
he's going to get used to it this year. That's for sure.
He's going to be the guy this year out in Indy. So yeah, the best is yet to come, I think, for the Canada basketball. And we talked about it a lot. We talk about it to no end with a lot of these guys. So I'm excited to see another guy. And I'm making the back end because I don't know. Did you see my most recent tweet, my pun? Because I know you would appreciate this.
No, I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
You're going to look it up now. But this is the guy who I would like to see play for Team Canada. Like a guy like that, once you see it.
Oh, hold on. My app's messing up right now because I was logging the wrong thing.
See, we're just delaying the.
Okay. Yep,
you feel me?
Yep. Yeah. I got you.
For those who haven't seen it, Caleb Houston, Canadian, he just signed with the Hawks. So he's been a guy who we kind of talked about him, especially leading up to the draft. He hasn't really put it together consistently yet, but I think that there's a lot of promise there. 6'7", 6'8" guy who can shoot the ball. Has 3-and-D potential. The joke I made was Houston signed with the Hawks, and if they go to Vegas, we got Houston, Atlanta, Vegas.
Yeah, there we
so
go.
We're just keeping it
all
Canadian.
Together.
Tying it all together,
roots, Canadian roots all the way through.
Keeping it Canadian there. But guys like that, guys who are, and I know there's different reasons, and guys like, he's got a contract that he's playing for, so maybe he can't afford to get hurt. But I don't know if there's anybody else that comes to your mind who you maybe would like to see, or like someone like, I don't want to call them lower end NBA talent, but you know what I mean, like some of the guys who are more supporting cast type guys, in the league, like a AJ Lawson, another guy like that. That'd be cool to see him. I know a couple years ago there was Delano Benton that went out there and got to be the guy for Canada, and that kind of translated with some things we saw from him in the league. So it's not just about developing the program; it's also about developing these players as well. And I think that it all kind of works, kind of full circle and becomes like a little thing where everybody benefits from it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that you hit the nail on the head on like someone like Shaedon Sharpe. Like he hasn't shown up to any of these tournaments yet. He hasn't been part of like training camp rosters. And I respect like the same way that you just said about AJ Lawson, same way you said about Caleb Houston. Like it's like I respect the decision because those guys are grinding to try and find their footing and cement their footing in the NBA. So like that's a very high risk for like, what is the reward? Like, is Caleb Houston or AJ Lawson really going to make the Olympics team or like even like the FIBA World Cup team? Like probably not. But it's like, to have an opportunity to represent your country and put yourself out there to, going back to Langston Galloway, like that is someone like Micah Potter, like those are guys who like they end up on like the U.S. select team and getting to travel to, all across the country and rep U.S. across their jersey because across the world, because they are constantly showing up to these types of tournaments to help the United States qualify for the big tournaments. And it's like, I'm sure there is.
Omax is another one I think would be cool to see go out there.
Yeah, that's a good name too. That is a good name too. Like that's someone who, he has his NBA contract and he was hurt a little bit last year. So I'm sure he's also trying to make sure that he gets his body right for the upcoming season. Yeah. But I think a lot of times it's not like, oh, I don't want to represent my country. It's more like, okay, what can I do? Or what is best for my NBA career? Is it, going to play with my national team, or is it staying put, staying in market, making sure I'm getting that work in, making sure the front office is seeing I'm getting that work in, the coaches are seeing I'm getting that work in, et cetera, et cetera. But, again, you do kind of go back to like the big European basketball teams that, they're shelling out their best roster every single year. And, you got the Wagner brothers out there, you got Dennis Schroeder's out there for Germany, and the list goes on and on of these players that constantly show up for their countries. And I think it's just a bigger deal for them than it is for teams in the Americas. I mean, don't really want to speak for the teams in like, South America, like you said, Brazil and Argentina that put out their best product or at least try to every single year. But, when it comes to like the United States and Canada, it always feels like those rosters leave a little bit to be desired.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we'll see how it plays out. And I guess we can shift since we've been talking about it so much and I don't have everybody in front of me and the rosters are kind of being finalized. I know we talked about the big three, Jokic and Giannis and Luka. And I guess I'll just open it up a little bit outside of those guys. Is there anybody that you're most excited to see out there? I think it'll be kind of fun. There's some other names, like a little bit of a who's who, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I mean, it could be Neemias Queta if you want it to be. If you want to see what he does in Portugal.
if I had my work laptop in front of me, I have a full list of every NBA player that is participating in EuroBasket, just to be able to keep track of players to watch, names to look out for, players that could potentially, knock on wood, hope that's not the case. But like, if there's even like a minor injury that might, have a setback for them going into the season. So I want to make sure that we were able to track all that. I just remember seeing that France has a ton of guys. Like obviously Wemby's not one of them,
on the team.
But yeah, they do. Like France is a team that like they're sending out a ton of guys. I remember like, even the C's fan in me, like Luka Garza is going out there and competing this year in EuroBasket. So there's a bunch of guys out there. You're going to have to watch the tournament to find out who. And like you said, I don't have the rosters up in front of me to give you somebody off the top of my head, but the fact that like, we have Giannis, Jokic and Luka in the tournament in the first place. And then, like I said, with the guys from Germany and being able to watch Franz Wagner, Dennis Schroeder is always one of the best players in the world on a national stage. Like it's worth tuning into because these teams play so hard. They compete so hard. They want it so badly. Like, I think even today is a good example of like Luka went out with a little bit of an injury the other day. He kind of had like a funky play where he got rolled up on by his teammate. He fell on the ground. His teammate fell on his knee. He hobbled off. Supposedly he was asking if these are just exhibition games at this point. Supposedly he was asking if he could go back in the second half. The dude goes out and he plays 28 minutes today in another exhibition game without taking a single game off. Like and he did. He put up numbers. He had 28, 10, and 6. So it's like, these guys want it bad. They want to represent their country. They want to help their countries qualify for, these bigger tournaments, FIBA World Cup, for the Olympics and everything like that. And, that alone should be, as a basketball fan, especially like being starved for some hoops right now, like that alone should be worth tuning into the tournaments that are coming up.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, like you talking through this, it reminded me because I some of the things we write, I remember I did a FAQ about Luka's tattoos. They won the EuroBasket in 2017. He has it tatted on him like that. When you wonder, like, and ask how much this stuff means to him, he has the EuroBasket like trophy tatted on him. So like these things mean a lot to them. Two names else I'll throw out there. One, because he's going to put up big numbers. I don't know how much they're going to win, but Lauri Markkanen in Finland, like he has been going crazy in the friendly games. It's like one of those things where it's like, apologies to the rest of the Finnish national team. I'm not too familiar with who's on that roster, but it kind of feels like other teams are like, man, we're just going to let Lowry get his and like nobody else is going to beat us. Right. And like, I could see them being a heavy underdog and him just going for 45 or 50 and that being the reason that, the way he plays, being able to shoot the ball, being as big as he is. And that, I'm sure the Jazz, I don't know what they're doing, what they got going on, but, either he's playing up his trade value or, they're thinking that, oh, hey, we can build around this. We can do this. And the other one I'm going to say is Alperen Şengün. We talk about, the Rockets next season and parlaying what he's doing out there into some success. Getting Kevin Durant is great. But I think that what they're betting on is, you got your veterans, you got KD, you got Freddie, but can Amen Thompson and Alperen Şengün and Jabari Smith Jr. make these leaps, right? And if they make these leaps, and also Amen Thompson, by the way, Thompson twins are probably going to play for Jamaica down the line as well. So if they have those guys and Norman Powell and maybe Isaiah Stewart, that ain't terrible. But but looking at Alperen Şengün, we got KD tweeting about this guy being different. He's putting the ball on the floor and doing a lot of things. We already know what he's capable of doing. He's already an all-star, but to see him do it on that level, we'll see some pretty cool big man battles. And Alperen Şengün is another guy who could sneakily, be like a sneaky MVP type guy if Turkey can go on a big run.
Yeah, and I'm looking through a list now that I got the EuroBasket website pulled up. But like, there's a bunch of names here, man. Like, you got guys who are always competing for their countries, like Vucevic and Jonas Valanciunas are always out there. Jusuf Nurkic is going to be out there competing. And then, I talked about the young guys for France, but like Alex Sarr and Zachary Risacher are both suiting up for France. Like, that's a big deal. So the list goes on and on of players that are going to be competing. And, it feels like every single time that you watch these types of teams, there are also other guys that stand out that you're like, oh, could they maybe deserve a shot? And like, that's where you find guys like Gershon Yabusele, who ended up having a very solid year in the NBA last year. Like, if he didn't perform the way that he did at the Olympics the summer before, would he have ever gotten that opportunity? Like, probably not. But, there's plenty of guys that are playing overseas that either have already gotten their chance in the NBA and teams feel like, oh, okay, we're kind of past that or we moved on from him or whatever it is. And then like Yabusele is a player just like that. Like, he was playing playoff minutes for the Celtics 6 years ago, or whatever it was. Crazy. And then he kind of just disappeared, and he was playing for Real Madrid, and he was still doing his thing overseas. And then he went crazy in the Olympics. And all of a sudden, like, he's someone who, he signed with the Sixers last year, had a solid season, signed with the Knicks this year. And like, that's solid. That's a pretty solid pickup for them in the offseason. So, there's plenty of guys who are trying to, obviously there are a lot of guys who are very comfortable staying overseas and playing overseas. But, for any of these international players that are looking for a second shot to get back into the NBA, if that's what their goal is, this is a great opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about what we would like to see maybe from Canada moving forward. That's exactly what France is doing. I don't know if it's confirmed or not yet, but looking at the list I'm looking at, I see Bilal Koulibaly, I see Ousmane Dieng, I see Zachary Risache, Alex Sarr, and Yabu kind of being the vet of that group. And then you got former NBA guys too, right? Like, pretty cool to see two Deeks in the tournament, Jalen Horde with France and then Dinos Mitoglou with Greece. But like to see guys like that who, which ones of these guys are going to stand out, get a little confidence playing the international stage at the senior level, because we know who the center of everything is going to be, no pun intended. But we saw what Victor Wembanyama did last year with France when he didn't really even know what was going on, right? And now, by the time World Cup and Olympics roll around, we could be, it's a long time from now. And I don't know what's going to happen with USA and Canada basketball, but the trajectory is leaning toward France, being like, maybe a world number one at that point, just because of the trajectory and also just the national team system there. So again, for you Hoops Stars fans, I know that college football is starting this weekend. We got week 0. I know that preseason NFL is ending this week, and we still got the W as well. So if you're Hoop Stars, you got the W, the playoff push, and you also have the EuroBasket and the AmeriCup. So you got a bunch of different flavors, a bunch of different options of things to choose from. And I'm hopefully you took a little bit from the way we broke it down, because there's a lot to watch out there and a lot to see.
Yeah, and then on the WNBA side, like, it's been kind of the hoops. The quality of hoops has still been high, but I know for the casual fan, it's been tough because Caitlin Clark's been out, Angel Reese has been out, Breanna Stewart's been out, Fisa Collier's been out. Like, there's been a lot of injuries, but I mean, Stars are starting to get healthy, man. And like, the Fever stayed in the playoff hunt, and like, the Lynx are still the best team in the W, and the Liberty are right there behind them. And these Stars are starting to make their way back. Like, we have a rough return date for Stewie. Nafisa Collier, who was the front runner of the MVP race, probably still is the front runner of the MVP race, even though Asia Wilson's trying to knock down the door. Thomas is also banging down the door. Like, Fee is, at least been upgraded to doubtful on the last 2 injury reports, so she's getting a little bit closer to coming back. It seems like Fever head coach Stephanie White seems pretty confident that Caitlin Clark is going to be able to come back before the end of the season. Angel Reese, at the time of recording, is about to be making her return onto the floor tonight. So there's only, I think it's like 2 weeks left in the regular season. There's only a handful of games left. It's like 8 games left or something like that, 9 games left for a lot of these teams. So now is a good time to tune in. The league is it's very close. Like, obviously the Lynx and the Liberty feel like they are at the very top ahead of everybody else. I know the Atlanta Dream are sneaking in there right now too, but it's like there's a lot of parity in that league, and the first round of the playoffs is going to be very exciting, especially with the new format they got and everything like that. So I'm looking forward to it big time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was going to say, man. Like, the way if the playoff season ended today, and obviously it doesn't, but we have Minnesota, Seattle, Atlanta, Golden State, New York, Indiana, and Phoenix, Las Vegas. That's good for travel. Games. That's good for travel for the most part, except for Atlanta, Golden State. That would be brutal. But otherwise, like, those are great matchups, and like a big tip of the cap again to Golden State. I know we talked about it last time we recorded, but the fact they're still hanging around, even after, dealing with Kayla Thornton's season-ending injury, they're still right in the playoff picture. And again, they have one of the best home court advantages in the league, maybe if not the best home court advantage. And I got to give a shout out to you, because you shouted out Kelsey Mitchell, and she went crazy on
she
Sunday.
Has the most points in the WNBA right now. Total points in the WNBA this season.
That doesn't surprise me when you say it, but it is wild because it doesn't get talked about enough. Right. It doesn't get talked about enough. Going crazy. They came back from 21 down in Connecticut to get a win as well. And then you also mentioned it too, like, Los Angeles is right on the outside looking in. They're a half game out of the playoff picture, as is Washington. So, the fact that there are 10 teams, most teams, like you said, 9 or 10 games left in the season at this point, and it'll be, pretty cool to see kind of how it goes down. Only one team is technically eliminated for playoff contention, but really it's 10 teams, or really, got 4 teams: Golden State, Seattle, LA, and Washington, all kind of jostling for that last spot. So I'm looking forward to getting close to the postseason and doing a little bit of a playoff preview for the W, and kind of seeing what we think. I think in every league it's matchup dependent, but I think even more so in the W because it's the best of 3 in the first round. So very excited for a pretty good playoffs, and hopefully we can get as many stars healthy as possible when the time comes for the season and the playoffs and the postseason to roll around.
Yeah, and I want to say too, like the way that things have shaken out in the back end of the season here, like you bring up like the Storm is a team that's like back towards the bottom end of the playoff picture. Like that is a damn good team. They made a big pickup at the trade deadline, grabbing Brittany Sykes, who can score. Yep. She can score like crazy, and they're just not finishing games right now. Like I think I was looking at it today. It's like out of their last 9 games, they've lost, out of their last 8 games, they've lost 7 of them by single digits. So It's like, but that's a team that like the ball bounced a couple different ways. Like that team is in 3rd place instead of in 8th place or whatever it is. So it's like, that's not necessarily a team that anybody's going to want to see in the first round. The same way that, the Aces, they get blown out by 50 points against the Lynx, and then they rattle off 7 straight wins. Asia Wilson's playing the best basketball that I think I've ever seen her play in my entire life. And now all of a sudden they're one of the hottest teams of the W, and they're a team that went from, they don't look all that good, to now all of a sudden it's like, okay, they're not a team you want to see in the first round either. So There's going to be a lot of good first round matchups. And the fact that it is best of 3 makes it feel like almost anything can happen. It does still feel like it's a collision course to see a Lynx Liberty finals, but at the same time, like, anything can happen with some of these matchups and the way they're shaking out.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue to wrap here. NBA 2K, we mentioned it, release is coming next week, early access anyway. They released their top 10 WNBA players. Nafisa Collier, best player on the game, 98. Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart, 97. Caitlin Clark, 96. Alyssa Thomas, 95. Sabrina Ionescu, 93. Nneka Ogwumike, Satu Sabali, Jonquel Jones, reigning Finals MVP. All 92s, and Angel Reese rounds out the top 10. The cover lady is a 90. Now, we don't know the top 20 yet at the time of recording with 2K, so I really can't ask you on the men's side or the NBA side of things. But I did see somebody point something out, and you are one of the most loyal 2K guys that I know. And I'm curious, 53, do you know the significance of that number?
I think I do know the significance of that number, because is the other end of that number 19? Is that what got, is it? Or were we looking at the same tweet?
Yep.
Is 53 the number of players that are 85 overall and higher?
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
That's fucking sorry. That's blasphemous.
That's how you feel about it.
No,
that's how you feel about
it. That's crazy, dude. That is like someone said that in NBA 2K15 10 years ago there was only 19 players that were 85 and higher. I understand that there are a lot of good players in the league nowadays, but like, you got 50 something players that are an 85 overall and higher.
53.
Now I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the list, and like the back end of that. All right, so we got Porzingis, OG, and Scotty Barnes, which like I feel like
that's such a weird assortment.
Yeah, that is a weird. That's what I'm looking at right now. Like, is KP really an 85 still? Probably not. Is OG an 85? I know he wasn't too happy with his rating. You sent me that video, but like, is he an 85? I don't know if he's an 85. Scotty Barnes to me 85. I think that's accurate. But then like we're looking through some of these other names here, like
DeRozan, Austin Reeves, De'Aaron Fox, Zach LaVine.
Is Austin Reeves an 85? I really like Austin Reeves. Is he 85?
82 still 85? Feels fair. Like 82 would feel fair. Like I don't even think that would be disrespectful for him. Like 82 feels like
I feel like 85 used to be like a very like prestigious number. Like it's like you are like top echelon, upper echelon, like you are a guy in the league if you are at 85. It does kind of feel like they're giving him away a little bit loosely now. Like Zach LaVine, is he still an 85? Julius Randle, is he really an 86? Like Jamal Murray, with all due respect, is he an 86? Like I don't know about
in the playoffs.
Like playoff
after April.
Playoff Jamal Murray should be a 90. I'm not hating on that. But like, you know, the list kind of goes on and on here. Like, you know, I love my boy Derek White. Is he an 87? Like that feels pretty high to me. Like it's just it's I don't like, it's almost like participation trophy-esque. And I do know that like they got. Like it's become like a lot more popular for like Ronnie 2K to like give these players their ratings in person. And I know players give him, you know what, about like, you know, why is my rating this? Why is my rating that? But it almost feels like they're like tailoring to the players a little bit too much. Do you feel the same way, or am I overreacting?
No, yeah. I think there's a lot of, I think what happens is, right, like the plateau changes, and it's like, once you give one person 85, you kind of have to shift the entire scale. And I think that's what we're seeing. And I think that, like, you know, Derek White, I think Derek White's a great player, and I know exactly the Celtics don't win without him. The Celtics aren't who they are without him. And he's more than a specialist, but he has a very specific set of skills. And I think that there needs to be a better way for his rating to not necessarily reflect what he's capable of doing on a game-to-game basis. Like, the number that comes to mind right away is 81, and not even in a disrespectful way, but I feel like an 81 that is very, very good at blocking shots and like making the right play and feels like he never misses an open shot. I think there should be a way that translates to that being an 81. And that brings me to my final question. Cooper Flagg, 82. What do you think?
I mean, it's like, I guess on a scale,
on this scale,
solid.
right?
on this scale, it's solid. But like, should he really be an 82 off the jump? Like, what? Like, I bet you probably had a similar number in your head. Like, I would have guessed like 78. I would have guessed he was like 78. Or like 77.
Fair. And
82 is pretty high, man. Like,
I wrote this the other day, and there's some discrepancies because the Sega versions of the games, their ratings aren't always there. So if you throw those out, and I'm going to put those out there right now, just Kenyon Martin was an 86 on NBA 2K1 when he was a rookie. I don't know if you knew that, which is
no, I did not
crazy.
Know that. I did not know that.
Elton Brand was
high school too. Or no, sorry, that's incorrect.
Straight off the broken leg at Cincinnati though, and Elton Brand was an 83 on NBA 2K. And this we'll wrap with trivia. Outside, and I know you wrote about this last year, so I don't know how well you retained it or not. Including Cooper Flagg, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other number one overall picks who were 80 or more on NBA 2K in the history of the game.
So Wemby was the highest rated rookie.
84.
He was like an 84. Yeah, okay, yep, I remember. I like vaguely remember writing that. I'm assuming Zion is in that company.
81.
Kyrie Irving, I feel like, is someone that was like pretty highly rated in 2K coming out.
He was not. And fun fact, because of the lockout, he had to get passion to the game.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I don't remember that.
He was a 70. I have them all in front of me. Kyrie was a 76.
All right. Well, so Paulo is like in that generation of like generous 2K ratings. Was he an 80?
78.
78, really?
78.
Oh man, I feel like I'm getting stumped here. All right, well, like LeBron is someone that I feel like was probably an 80 at least going into his rookie year.
78 high school tax.
78 high school tax is crazy.
78. Kwame Brown's the lowest all time. 71. Yeah, you said Zion.
I said Zion.
Zion and Wemby 84, 81.
Okay. Like what about like? Man, I don't even know. Like Anthony Davis was probably an 80. He was so dominant in college. Didn't 79. Get there.
79.
79. Damn. What about Blake Griffin?
Blake Griffin, another great guess, but 77.
Oh man! All right, I'm fully stumped. All right, you're gonna have to give it to me. I feel like I felt like those were solid guesses too.
So, well, I'll give you one hint. The guy we spent 10 minutes talking about to start the pod.
John Wall was an 80. All right, yeah, that 81. Makes sense. That makes
81.
Sense.
John Wall was an 81. Okay. Greg Oden on NBA 2K8 was an 80. D Rose an 80.
Okay.
Cade Cunningham 80, and this last one is kind of sad to say. Markelle Fultz was an 80.
Oof. I mean, yeah, I guess. You know what? That's an interesting. If you go back and watch
the Washington tape, it makes sense.
No, for sure. He looked like James Harden, bro. He did. He literally looked like James Harden at Washington. But like, that's an interesting group. That like I feel like Anthony Davis to me is a better guess than like Markelle Fultz. You know what I mean? But again, new era.
Yeah. And to land the plane here, the rest of the rookies that are top 10 on this year's game: Dylan Harper 78, Ace Bailey 77, VJ Edgecombe 76, Con Knipple 75, Trey Johnson 75, Kaman Malawat 74, Jeremiah Fear 73, Yegor Dimon 72. Colin Murray Boyles rounds out the top 10, 72. So there you go. Raptors got 72 in Colin Murray Boyles, 84 in Brandon Ingram, 85 in Scotty Barnes. I think RJ Barrett's an 84 as well. So maybe they'll be a fun team to play with on the game.
I'm very curious to see what this top 20 look. I'm very curious to see what this top 20 looks like because like I mean I don't notice any glaring omissions yet, but I feel like 2K is probably, especially with the way they've been rolling these things out, like there's going to be something in there that's going to get people going, and I don't know what it's going to be. But I mean, hey, we'll find out. We're already rolling into the 90s. There's at least 24 players that are 90 or higher. So there's more players that are 90 or higher in this year's 2K than there were players that were 85 and higher 10 years ago, which is crazy.
Put it that way, it's nuts.
Yeah, here we go.
It's nuts, and yeah, like to think like it's just, I think he earned it, but it's just kind of jarring to see Jalen Williams as a 90. Like, love J-Dub, but it just is an interesting thing. So,
is he really is he really on the same level? With all due respect, is he on the same level as, I'm looking at the names ahead of him right now? Is he better than Paolo Banchero and Evan Mobley, who just won Defensive Player of the Year? And is he on the same level as Kyrie, Trae Young, and Jaylen Brown?
That's tough to say, man. It's tough to say.
Jalen Williams,
granted, everything he did in the playoffs was with a messed up wrist, but still. And
obviously, as a team player, like, he's a better. You'd rather have Jalen Williams on your team than like Trae Young on your team. But I'm saying, like, individually, and especially like in 2K,
building around him, building a franchise guy. Yeah, like it's a video game. It's a difference. So basically, the shout out. I'm looking forward to playing the game. Love the game. Don't get me wrong, but I'll be interested to see how this translates to the game, and I'm excited to talk about that on here. So lock in with us here on NBA Soundsystem Canada. We'll have more video game talk, WNBA talk, more all-season talk once those guys who still are seeking a home find their home. So keep it locked in with us. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you who subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, who have found us and followed us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube. NBA Soundsystem Canada is the handle. For Kyle Irving, my name is Gil McGregor. We will be back here to talk more about what's going on around the world of basketball. Talk AmeriCup. Talk EuroBasket. Next time you catch us here on NBA Sound System. Catch you then.